Have you ever wondered if the biblical prophecies about the end times are really coming true? It seems like every new piece of news awakens a sense of unease within us. But at the same time, there's a lingering doubt we can't silence. Are we interpreting all this correctly? It's fascinating how signs like wars, famine, and disasters echo around the world, and many see them as confirmations of what Jesus foretold centuries ago. The most curious thing? Much of these messages have been misused, creating fear where understanding should prevail. If you feel caught in a whirlwind of information and don't know whom to trust, you're not alone. The truth is that while some try to manipulate these messages to gain followers or spread panic, others seek genuine answers in the words of Jesus. And that's where things get interesting, because when you understand the context and the real purpose of these prophecies, something changes inside you. It's not about fearing the future, but being prepared for it. And do you know what's most fascinating? This preparation isn't just spiritual, but also practical. It's not about running from the world, but facing each challenge as a step toward the purpose God has for you. Want to understand how all this connects and what Jesus really meant to tell us? Stay with me, because what's coming next could transform how you see life and the times we live in. When it comes to the end times, it's impossible to ignore how much this topic has gained attention. Just look at the online discussions where people talk about signs of war and climate phenomena as if they were chapters from a prophetic book. The fear of the unknown has always attracted attention. It's natural. Mystery intrigues us. But are we seeing the full picture? Many times, sacred messages, such as the teachings in Matthew 24, are distorted, not to edify but to manipulate. And this, my friend, demands discernment on our part. But why has this buzz intensified? The answer lies in our collective anxiety. Wars, pandemics, and natural tragedies are the perfect fuel for sensational theories. However, be cautious. Not every echo comes from a true thunderclap. For example, digital influencers who use these prophecies to gain followers or spread panic. And if you think it's hard to discern the truth, here's a practical tip. Always seek the context of the passages you read. As in the case of Matthew 24, understanding the origin of the text is essential to avoid mistakes. Speaking of context, seeing how each event connects with history is a valuable skill. Imagine we're assembling a puzzle where the pieces are the signs and events of the world. Each time we place a piece incorrectly, the picture changes entirely. This doesn't mean the image is false, but that we need to revisit and reinterpret some parts. And speaking of revisiting, the next piece of the puzzle brings us a sermon that has echoed through the centuries. Interested? Let's go. When Jesus spoke about the end times in the famous Sermon on the Mount of Olives, he wasn't just narrating a grim apocalypse. His words in Matthew 24 were like a spiritual map to guide his disciples through uncertainties. Before diving into this passage, it's essential to understand the context. In the previous chapter, Jesus was confronting the Pharisees in the temple, exposing their hypocrisy and lack of faith. This wasn't just a sermon. It was a call to transformation. As he left the temple, his words resonated as a warning to Jerusalem, prophesying its destruction. Imagine yourself at that time, hearing Jesus predict that not one stone will be left on another. It was as shocking as saying that a great modern metropolis would be reduced to rubble. And what's even more impressive is that even in the face of such a striking message, his disciples weren't content with the warning. They sought more answers. This attitude teaches us the importance of questioning, of seeking truth amid uncertainty. Like them, it's vital to ask and interpret rather than passively accept everything. In his response to his followers, Jesus revealed future events, but his words also carried deep symbolism. For example, he compared the last days to the time of Noah, a period of apparent normalcy before a great catastrophe. This analogy invites us to look at our times with attentive eyes and prepared hearts. After all, what does it mean to be truly prepared? Could be more than just reflection. It might be a starting point to connect with the next layer of this prophecy. When Jesus warned about the coming of false prophets and the Antichrist, he left us with a message that resonates even today. It's not hard to identify charismatic leaders who mislead crowds, offering promises that seem too good to be true. These false teachers, as Jesus described, are like wolves in sheep's clothing. They manipulate sacred words for their own interests, often spreading misinformation. A current example can be seen in the proliferation of conspiracy theories that distort biblical messages to create fear and confusion. Recognizing these signs is essential, but it requires discernment and genuine study. The prophecies Jesus shared on the Mount of Olives weren't just about deceivers, but about an unprecedented period of tribulation. He mentioned catastrophes, wars, and persecutions, but all this is only the beginning of the birth pains. Think of it as the contractions of a mother about to give birth. The beginning is painful, but there's a culmination that transforms suffering into something greater. These pains of tribulation are also an invitation for the church to strengthen itself, like an athlete training before a major competition. And if you're wondering how to face these challenging times, Jesus has already given us the answer: faith and vigilance. While false prophets arise, the true message remains unchanging. It's like an anchor in the middle of a storm. Ask yourself, what have you done to nurture your faith and discernment? Reading scriptures, praying, and communing with other believers are valuable tools for navigating uncertain times. After all, this preparation is just one piece of the bigger puzzle to come. The signs of tribulation mentioned by Jesus in Matthew 24 serve as a clear reminder that the world will undergo drastic transformations before his return. He spoke of wars, famine, and natural disasters, but each event carries profound symbolism. Wars aren't just armed conflicts, but reflections of humanity divided and lost in its own interests. Famine can symbolize both material scarcity and spiritual emptiness. When we look at current events, such as environmental disasters, we see these prophecies unfolding like chapters in a story written centuries ago. These signs, though frightening, serve a purpose: to awaken us to something greater. Imagine a siren blaring amidst routine. It's impossible to ignore. Likewise, these events are calls for introspection and preparation. One example is how many people, faced with tragedies, seek to reconnect with their faith or reevaluate their priorities. Jesus knew these difficulties would function as catalysts for transformation, bringing those willing to listen closer to God. So what should we do in the face of such signs? The first step is not to be dominated by fear, but to view them as opportunities for growth. Stay aware of what's happening around you and seek knowledge. Read the scriptures, meditate on their messages, and find ways to help others during tough times. After all, the signs of tribulation are just the prelude to something much greater, which Jesus revealed in his words and we are yet to explore. Preparation for the faithful, in light of the difficult times Jesus prophesied, goes beyond simply expecting the worst. It's about being spiritually vigilant and emotionally balanced amid the distractions and challenges of modern life. Jesus warned us about the cooling of love and the proliferation of deception, something we witness daily. Social media, for instance, often spreads confusing ideologies that distance us from genuine values. Keeping faith alive in this context is like keeping a flame burning against strong winds. But how can we prepare in practice? A great start is building a solid spiritual routine, dedicating time to studying the Bible, praying daily, and cultivating healthy relationships with other believers. Think of your faith as a muscle that needs exercise. The more you practice, the stronger it becomes. Moreover, prioritize actions that demonstrate your beliefs. Contributing to the community or helping someone in need are tangible examples of applying Christ's teachings in daily life. And never forget that this preparation isn't just individual. It impacts everyone around you. Your faith and resilience can inspire others to follow the same path. Think of it as a lighthouse in the darkness, guiding those who are lost. But that light needs constant refueling. We're in the middle of a journey that connects us directly to what Jesus revealed. What comes next is as important as the preparation itself. Now that you've gone through this journey of learning, what will you do with all this? Jesus' prophecies are not just a warning but an invitation. A call to strengthen your faith, cultivate discernment, and live with purpose in uncertain times. Think about it. If the end times are truly near, how do you want to spend your days? Do your current choices reflect the values you believe in, or is there something that needs to change? Take this opportunity to reflect and act. Start with small steps. Set aside time for prayer, deepen your biblical knowledge, or even share what you've learned here with others. After all, your preparation can inspire others to do the same. And never forget, transformation begins within you, but its impact can reach far beyond. Did you enjoy this content? Then don't miss the chance to keep learning. Subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and stay tuned for more transformative messages. Who knows? The next revelation might be the missing piece for you to understand even more about God's divine purpose for your life. Let's walk this journey of faith and discovery together.